Hey everybody, I'm Chris Brady from chrisbrady.com, and I'm doing a little impromptu video right now because I wanted to I'm using some new software today, and I thought the best way to try it out is just to do a live and then watch it. So what I really wanted to talk to you guys today about is I had posted an article a couple days ago. I think it was 2 days ago, and it was about a woman in her 70s who had recently been diagnosed with autism. And sorry, I'm trying to figure out this technology. And so what happened was I got a lot of private emails, because that's normally what I get. Private emails. I got a couple of comments, but most things are said privately to me. And there were some questions about, as an adult, why would you get diagnosed? Is there a point to doing it? You already know some of your difficulties, or most of them anyways, and pretty much what they're attributed to. Some people do, and many people don't. So there are several reasons why you would or you wouldn't get a diagnosed, like an assessment, a psych ed assessment done in adulthood. And I'm just going to go through a few of the ones that, in my experience, are the most common. But it may be different for you, and it's really up to each person. Whatever you want to do is what you should do. So this woman really wanted to have the diagnosis, and she wrote in the article that this isn't for everyone, but I wanted to know because I really wanted to understand where all of these difficulties were coming from. And some things you can attribute to having an autistic brain, and some things you can attribute to just having difficulties with those things. It might be anxiety, it might be another learning disability, it might be that you just actually aren't great at those things, because everything is a spectrum. And so that's one of the most common reasons, is that we want to better understand how we learn, and why traditional learning didn't work, or why a lot of friendships didn't work, or why we were always getting in trouble in school, or why emotions are like a roller coaster. There are so many things that can be explained by getting a diagnosis. And then when you have that, you're very much more prepared moving forward. So that's one of the reasons why. Another reason that people would get diagnosed is when you are blamed for your entire childhood about different difficulties that you've had. That blame eventually turns into shame. And I know I've talked about this before. It doesn't matter if you are a child with dyslexia or ADHD or autism or dysgraphia. It doesn't matter what diagnosis you have or what learning difference you have. If you are not a learner in a traditional environment, then the system doesn't usually change for you. You are expected to change. And when you can't change, you are blamed for that. And over and over and over again, receiving blame for something that you actually can't change turns into shame. It turns into something you feel you are. And as an adult, when I started working more with adults, this shame was probably the most prevalent difficulty, because we had to get through that in order to really understand where the difficulties were, because the shame is very, very emotional. And it goes with you everywhere. And so you start to not try new things. and you kind of start to just think that you can't do it. No matter how hard you try, you can't do it. And so when you're diagnosed as an adult and you start to look back on all of the blame and the creation of the shame, you start to understand where it came from. And this can be obviously a very emotional experience, but a very enlightening experience. And you start to understand that there is a community of people that you can talk to about this, and that is also an amazing tool to have as an adult who has experienced this shame. And the third reason that is very common as well, because most adults are diagnosed after their children receive a diagnosis. They start to understand, okay, I have a lot of these same difficulties that my kid's having, and he was just diagnosed with ADHD, so that might be where my problem's coming from too. And I know for myself, there was a huge, it's not that you don't know the difficulties are there, you absolutely do know, but receiving a diagnosis can also just kind of feel like I don't really need it. I have all of these strategies in place for my life. It doesn't really, it's not a necessity. However, if your child is going to be diagnosed or just got diagnosed, there of course is the stigma. There of course is a lot of misunderstanding about what that means. And your child's going to get a lot of negative feedback. And what is really great is if one of the parents is able to say, let's have these conversations. I have these same difficulties, and this is how I get through it. And we're not ashamed of having a different brain or a different way of learning or a different way of experiencing life. And it's something that we normalize in our house. And that way, your child is going to come to you with more of their problems because they know that you get it. And you are the one person, possibly the only person in their life right now who's really understanding that and who can talk to them honestly and openly about it. So those are some reasons that you definitely would want to get a diagnosis. There are other reasons, but those are definitely the most prominent in my experience. So if you were, if you saw, this woman in her 70s, is this really necessary at this age? She probably already knows. She had a granddaughter who was diagnosed and then a daughter who was diagnosed. So it's not that she wouldn't have known that things were different for her, but to be able to go back into your childhood and explain why those things were happening, that it wasn't your fault, that it wasn't something that you just weren't trying hard enough to do, makes a huge difference in your future. So that's all I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to be doing a live on Sunday as well, so we'll talk about some more things then, just dealing with the stigma of having any kind of neurodivergent brain. All right, I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.